Hi everyone. I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I've been working on, what my family's been working on during the break. And behind me is a dead apple tree, a huge, way too big dead apple tree. It got so big and the branches got so heavy, it never got trimmed. Most apple trees, you're supposed to trim the branches so it doesn't get too heavy, but this one never got trimmed. So it got so heavy that it tipped over and a bunch of roots were sticking up. Well, last summer, Niall, my husband, cut down the trunk of it, most of it. And it's been laying here ever since. So this summer, or during this break, we have been cutting the branches off and cutting them into smaller and smaller pieces to use as firewood, because we have a wood stove in our house and we want to burn the wood. So, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about how we're doing that, the tools that we're using, and I'm going to show you about how some of them work. So here's the tree. You can see most of it is just these big pieces of trunk left on it. We've already cut off a lot of the branches. Let me show you this one over here. This is kind of what it used to look like before it fell over. This tree here, where had all these crazy branches full of smaller twigs and smaller twigs and smaller twigs. And it was kind of full of nasty vines. I don't know if you can kind of see the ivy has grown up in it. There's a lot of blackberries down around the bottom. See all those leafy bushy bits? A lot of those are pokey blackberries that grow up right next to it. And this tree had the same thing. It was covered with all of that. You can still see some of the blackberries over here. We still need to cut those down. But we've been working really hard, and this is where we're at so far. So first, I'm going to show you some of the tools that we've been using. Well, these are the tools we used. I'll tell you what they're all called, or what we call them anyway, and then I'll show you one at a time how they work, how most of them work. This is my tool belt with my work gloves and my clippers, and I use those probably the most of anything. And these ones, we call these the big clippers or the long clippers. And those are really good for blackberries. Both of these are really good for dealing with the blackberry vines and the smaller, skinnier things. These ones we call the loppers. And you see the blades, the heads are a little different on this one and this one. These are a little stronger, so they're good for thicker branches, or thicker twigs, maybe that big. This is our handsaw. And this big boy over here, this is the chainsaw. I don't do a lot of chainsawing. That's what Niall does most of the chainsawing. And this is some of his safety equipment that he uses. And I'll show you how all that goes on. This is a bin I use for some smaller branches. And this is a wheelbarrow. And those are the tools that we use. Now I'll show you them one at a time. Okay, this is my work belt, tool pouch. My work pouch. It has a little clip and a belt, so I can wear it like this. I have what I need right here. And I always put on my work gloves, especially if I'm working with blackberries, because they are very, very pokey. That's probably what I deal with the most. Here is a big old lump of blackberries, and I'm going to show you how they work. These have good, strong, tough fabric made out of leather that the pokies, they can't poke my hands at all when I'm wearing them. And these blades on these clippers are just right for blackberries and skinny vines like that. I'll show you how it works. See, I can just grab it. I can just grab blackberries just like this, and it doesn't poke my hand at all. And this just cuts it. And then once I've got it cut, I cut it into smaller pieces like this. And that way, the ground is covered with smaller bits instead of like these big, long, poofy bits. And then the lawnmower can just go over them and chop them right up. I'll do one more. I'll cut one side, pull it out, and chop it up into smaller bits that the lawnmower can deal with. And if I do this for long enough, this whole lump of blackberries will be gone. And these clippers have a really handy lock on them. If I unlock it, they'll open and close. If I push the lock up, they stay closed. And they have a wrist strap too. I don't really use it. I guess some people might leave them on their wrist, but I like to use my pouch for that. So if I'm working with blackberries or any kind of vines, and I want to put these down for a second, if I put them on the ground, I might lose them, or I might have to bend over and pick them up. So I just stick them in there, and it's really handy. It keeps everything together. That's the pouch. All right, these are the long clippers. They look like a big pair of scissors, kinda. These are also for dealing with blackberries. So I'm gonna put the gloves back on. I always put the gloves on when I'm dealing with blackberries. I do not like getting scratched up. Okay. Now these can chop big old pieces at once. It's like giving the bushes a little haircut. And they're really good at working fast like that, but they're also kind of heavy, and they make my arms kind of wear out and get tired before the other ones do. So I'll use this one if I have to do a whole bunch at once, but I don't use it for very long. Another cool thing about these is they have telescoping arms. And what that means is these handles right here, they can get longer and shorter. I'll show you how that works. Turn it like that. Turn it, lock it. Now they're a little shorter. Let's use them now. And that's how the long clippers work. Again, I don't know if that's what they're really called. That's what we call them. All right, the next tool I want to show you is these loppers. Kind of like the clippers. They've got the sharp edges right here, but they're a lot stronger. So I'll show you about the right size branch for these. Most of the branches on the tree have already been cut bigger than what the loppers can do. We've been working on this for a while now. But I'll show you, this is a good size twig for the loppers. It's they're not little like vines, like the blackberry vines, and they're not twigs, like if they're like this small, you can just snap them with your hands, and we just snap them with our hands if they're that small. Snap them off. You can see where we've snapped off a lot of the little super tiny twigs, and that leaves us with a twig this big, and some of these you can snap like that. But some of them you either don't want to snap, or maybe they don't break quite so easily. They might not be quite so dead. So you would use the loppers, like this. And that's about as big as you want to go. This one is a little bit too big. I'll show you. This is a good size for the loppers. This one's a little bit too big. When they get to be about this big or bigger, like this spot right here is a little bigger, a lot of these ends, we use the handsaw for that. And I'll show you that one next. But first I want to show you what we do with these little bits of the smaller twigs that we cut. We save these, and we use them for kindling, because that helps if you're going to have a fire in the fireplace. It helps to have smaller branches to use for kindling. So I'll show you, remember that orange bucket over here? That's full of these smaller pieces. And that's something that Dottie and Jocasta helped me do, is when I use the loppers to cut the smaller twigs into little kindling pieces, they'll pick them up and fill up the bucket with them. And Dottie helps snap the little twigs too, the ones you can do with your hands that I showed you. All right, next I want to show you the handsaw. This is our handsaw. And handsaws are very, very sharp. All of these actually are very, very sharp, and they're for adults. I should have said that at the beginning. These are all for adults to use. But this is our handsaw, and it's not only sharp, but it is jagged as well. That's the blade part. And that's why we have this case for it. When we put it down, we want it to make sure and keep it safe, but we also want to keep it from rusting, because rust can be really bad for blades. Makes them dull. So we have a case for it. And I'm going to show you, so down here on the stump, there we go. You can kind of see down here, this is where we've already used it, either with the chainsaw or the handsaw. Those look like chainsaw cuts. They're very smooth. But I'm going to show you this one. This one has not been cut yet, and this is about the right size for the handsaw. It's about that big around, like a banana. So I definitely can't use the loppers, but I don't want to get the chainsaw out for just that. So let me use the handsaw. Handsaw's really good at cutting these, but it kind of takes a little while, so this might take a minute. And when I'm sawing, I try to mostly go back and forth. I don't push down very much, just back and forth. When it starts to get stuck like that, you know it's angling and you're close to being done. Sometimes. Yeah, there you go. There we go. That's how you use the handsaw. When we're all done, I'm going to show you what we do with the long branches. I'll show you the chainsaw, and then I'll show you what we do with these long branches. That was the handsaw. All right, now I don't usually use the chainsaw, so I've never actually put these on before, but I want to show you some of the protective equipment that Niall uses when he uses the chainsaw. Because chainsaws are very dangerous. They could cut just about anything. So, including people. So, when you use a chainsaw, you have to be super careful. This is the first thing Niall puts on, is chainsaw pants. They don't look like pants, they're just flat, because they only go on the front of his legs. Back up and show you. They're not gonna fit me, because they're sized for Niall. He clips it on, just like my little belt. And then there's clips that go on his leg too. And they go on the front like this. When you're chainsawing, the part that you're most likely to get hurt, when people have gotten hurt with chainsaws, it's usually on their legs. So it's good to wear these protective pants. Now another thing about chainsaws is they're very, very loud. So this is a hard hat that comes with earmuffs to protect your ears from the loud noise. These ones are padded on the inside, they're very comfy. And the hard hat is in case you are, let's say you're chopping down branches or little trees. You don't want anything to hit you on the head. You gotta keep your head safe, just like when you're riding a bike. So you put on the hard hat with the earmuffs. Oh, I'm not gonna put those on because I can't hear what I'm saying at all. And the last thing you put on is this screen, because things can kind of go flying around, like bark dust, sawdust from when you're cutting can go flying around. You don't want any of that to get in your eyes. So this helmet keeps your head safe, keeps your eyes safe and your face, and it keeps your ears safe. And then here is the chainsaw. Once you're all geared up, this is the chainsaw. And this I guess is how you hold it. There's this part that holds it up, and this part where you can kind of like aim it and angle it. Hold it like this, hold it like this. There's a couple different spots to hang on to it. This is the sharp part. And these little sharp blades, they're very jagged, and they go around and around really, really fast. There's a motor in here that turns this chain around and around, kind of like a bike chain. But the outside of the chain is very, very sharp, and it can cut a lot of strong things. This is a gas chainsaw. There's battery operated chainsaws. There's chainsaws you can plug into an extension cord, but this one is operated on gas. And there's a little pull cord right there you pull to turn it on. I'm not gonna do that. Niall knows a lot more about chainsaw safety than I do. That's why he does most of the chainsawing. And also because it's really heavy work, and he's a little stronger than I am. He's a lot stronger than I am. So he does that mostly. But yeah, that's the chainsaw. I'll show you what he uses it with next. All right, this is where Niall uses the chainsaw. He'll use it to cut down the big branches off of trees or some smaller trees that need to get cut down. We've had some small trees that are leaning really bad that he needed to cut down. He's used it for that too. But the main place he uses it is the chainsaw rack. And he built this rack so that we could stack up branches like this one. Remember this one I cut down with the handsaw? You probably couldn't tell in the video, but it's really long. Look how long that is. It would take me a long time to chop this into firewood with the handsaw. I'd have to cut it here, 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 and here. We have a tiny wood stove, so we need small pieces of wood. So instead of doing that all the time, Niall built this, which is a rack you can put the branches in. You just plop them in, stack them up, and then what he does is he goes down these holes in between with the chainsaw to cut them into smaller pieces, like that, all the way down. And that way he can cut lots of branches at the same time. Now, he actually already did that, and we have all of these smaller pieces to unload. This is what we get when we see it's a nice big branch like that other one, not like those little twigs we can do with the loppers, but bigger ones, even as big as some of these big ones. Some of these big, like thick, girth-wise. Here's a big one. Wow. I'll have to chop this one a little smaller before we burn it. Here's a big one. And some of them are smaller ones that are just like those little branches that I cut with the handsaw, but it's just easier to cut them into little pieces with the chainsaw rack. I'll show you where we put those next. Okay. So I had to go get my wheelbarrow. Remember the big gray wheelbarrow I showed you? There it is. We use that one to load all this wood up where it goes. We just take all the wood from here and we toss it in. Normally I wear my gloves for this too, not because they're pokey, because sometimes they're rough and it's just easier to get work done when you've got your gloves on. But I left him over there and I'm just showing you, so. This wheelbarrow can hold lots and lots of wood, so instead of carrying them in my arms, just a few at a time, over to the wood pile, I can carry a whole bunch. Let me finish loading this up and I'll show you how much it can hold. Well, there it's pretty full, although it can hold quite a bit more. That's about as much as I want to load into it right now. I'm also only putting wood that we want to burn inside into this cart. Some of this wood is a little bit rotten already, or it's like that, a chunk just came right off. That is not good inside wood. It would probably smell a little weird when it burned and hiss a lot and make a lot of steam. So we'll save that for the outside fire. And these will go, I'll take you with me and show you where they both go. That's where we stack up some of the outside wood. I'll show you. This is like our outside fireplace. So we put some of this, like the older, wetter wood that's not going to burn as clean, but it'll burn in there just fine. And also that's really big. So these big chunks of wood will fit in there that won't fit inside. I'll show you where we put these smaller inside wood. Most of those apple branches, the branches from that apple tree over there, make a really good inside wood. So I'll show you where we'll take that. There's no way I could carry that much wood, so it's in my arms at once. So it's really nice to have this wheelbarrow to do it for me. Okay, well, I carried the wheelbarrow all the way from the backyard, all the way around into our front porch, which is where we keep our firewood for inside. And we keep it stacked right up here. I'll show you where it goes. Right here, on these piles. I can come back here and get some more. Might have Dottie and Joe help me with this part too. Are really good at carrying and stacking. Well, here we are back at the fallen tree stump, and we're almost done with this, where it'll still cut off some of these smaller branches like this one, and maybe some of these little ones with the handsaw. But the big ones, like this, and this, like that, we're gonna leave because it makes a really fun climber, and Dottie loves to climb on it, and she wanted to show you how she climbs up on the stump. She likes to pretend it's her car. She's gonna show you how she climbs up onto her car seat.
And then I put my other foot up there. I hold on to this. I step over that, and then I get my foot up there. And then I have fun, and then I go, and that's how I drive it. I know it's a windy day, but he was getting my face. That's why I'm pushing it up. Bye, everyone.
Oh, we also noticed, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, maybe back there a little bit. This spot right here still has a little bit of roots in the ground. It started growing these little starts on it. The stump is growing these tiny little starts that are about as big as a blackberry vine. They're about that big around. I don't know if you could see them from there, but those might grow more apple branches with apples. So we're gonna leave those there and see what happens. So that's what we're doing with our apple tree while we're home. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.
Bye. It was nice to show you how I climb up on this tree. We'll see you later, and we'll do another video like this another time.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.